What's going on, guys? Vanity here. This one's going to be about how to sound like Flying Lotus. The previous Sound Like series, or the previous Sound Like video I should say, was on J Dilla, so if you want to know some mixing characteristics of a J Dilla record, please go back and check that out. I'm going to keep the part 1 and part 2 format, I think. So if you're new to the series, part 1 is me analysing a few of the artist's tracks, so this one's going to be me breaking down 3 Flying Lotus records. Part 2 is then going to be about a track that I've made in the style of the artist, so in this case in the style of Flying Lotus. I'm going to break that down and show you how I made it and show you kind of what makes up a Flying Lotus record. It's all well and good me talking about it, but I think if I can actually show you something, especially something I've made, I think it will kind of help you understand and contextualise what's in a Flying Lotus record, as it does with me. I'm sure everyone watching this video knows who Flying Lotus is, but if not, he's an experimental electronic music producer from Los Angeles. He also raps under another alias known as Captain Murphy, so I find Flying Lotus's mixing style really interesting, because he's kind of broken the guidelines or the quote-unquote rules of mixing and mastering. In a lot of his records, his drum sounds are usually distorting slightly to give them that dirty or organic feeling to them. I honestly think that all of his records are absolutely littered with these incredible vibrant sounds, and they're full of textures, layers, and then he pairs this with like his well-known analog and dynamic drum samples. So he's got a real distinct sound going on, which is exactly why I wanted to break it down and analyse it, because I find it, really interesting. So I've got 3 records here. The first is Tea Leaf Dancers from his 2007 Reset EP. The second is SDS, which was actually an instrumental he produced for Mac Miller, which was released in 2013, I believe. The third and final one is called Until the Colour Comes, which was off his 2012 album Until the Quiet Comes. The fourth track you can see here at the bottom of the screen, this one down here, is actually a Flying Lotus inspired track which I've made. I wrote it last year in a hotel room after just watching and actually meeting Flying Lotus, which was incredible. He was performing live at Bristol at the Colston Hall. So yeah, this track is something that was greatly inspired by him, and this is the track I'm going to be breaking down in part 2 of this tutorial series. So I'm going to give you a little taste of this track now, so you know what to expect in the next episode. I'll probably play just 30 seconds of it. I don't want to take up too much of the tutorial, so I'll get straight into it. Alright, so just to reiterate, my last point is this track was inspired by Flying Lotus. It was just a way of getting, after seeing him perform live, it was just a way of kind of getting all that out of my system and, putting it down onto a record. So I'm going to play just a little bit of each of the Fly Low records we've got here, just so you guys can familiarise yourself with them if you don't already know them. So the first one is Tea Leaf Dancers.
No, I can't seem to get it, and in my mind I'm ready. My time's made up, I gotta go. And it's alright if you want to see through your tomorrow, but right now I gotta go. If you want to stay, then you can be here with me, but I can't let go of this love, oh no, so easily. I said if you want to stay, then you can be here with me, but I can't let go of.
Alright, the next one is going to be SDS, which is the instrumental he made for Mac Miller. And lastly, I've got Until the Colour Comes. Alright, so for anyone that's unsure as to why there is two analyzers here, is because I've got it set on average plus max. So this top one here is the maximum loudness, the bottom one here, the lighter one, is the average loudness. So I want to play each record now, and I want to speak about, just about the general mixing characteristics, the drums, just general things I'm hearing in the record that I'm then going to later apply to the record that I'll show you in part 2. So we'll just take another quick listen to this, and while it's playing, I'll just speak about what I'm hearing.
No, I can't seem to get it, and in my mind I'm ready. My time's made up, I gotta go.
Alright, so straight away, pretty sure his kick drum is sitting here, around 95 Hz. The main punch of the bass line is sitting about 50. And the snare is sitting around, maybe 3.6k around there, I think. If you listen to his drums, you can hear how quiet and how kind of tiny the snare and the kick is. I mean, the snare almost sounds like some sort of percussion instrument. It's definitely not a snare drum. It could be a very quiet rim shot sound. But Flying Lotus obviously doesn't layer up lots and lots of kick drums and snare drums on top of each other. He obviously finds single sounds that he likes and uses them, which is definitely a better approach than layering 5 and 6 different sounds on top of each other. As I mentioned in the first part of the series, the J did the tutorials, try and find the samples as close to perfection in your mind as you can, rather than applying too much processing to them. So I'll just change to the master analyzer, which has given me a kind of overview of the whole record, an average overview I should say. You can see, like I said earlier, the kick's sitting around 100 Hz, the bass 40, you've got a dip around 1.1k, snare hitting around here, 3.6, and then you've got a nice little kind of hi-hat loop sitting around 11k. Oh, and obviously the vocals are sitting between 1.5 and 3.5, somewhere around there. Yeah, as you can hear, it's a very nicely controlled record, very rounded. A few more things I want to mention on the analyzer is the RMS, the crest factor, and the correlation meter. Put this back to here. So the correlation meter is affected by time-based effects like delay, reverb, etc. So generally speaking, you want it to be solidly in the green at all times. The best mixed records, it probably won't be fluctuating much at all. Not saying this is a badly mixed record, but in terms of phase, could be improved. But again, there are no rules in mixing, these are purely guidelines. In a record like this, I'd expect it to be fluctuating because of the amount of sounds, reverb and delays that are in there. Make sure that it's never going into the red though, because that can sound very strange. Probably an indication you've got too many delays and reverbs in a mix. So the next thing is the RMS. It stands for root mean square. Now this is the average level of the track. So if I reset this, we can see Flying Lotus's Tea Leaf Dancers is sitting around minus 12 dB. Now this is kind of an average one for electronic music. 10 to 13k is kind of where, or minus 10 to 13 I should say, is where most electronic music is sitting. So when you're mastering a track, if you are mastering your own record, pay a lot of attention to the RMS. Make sure it's as close to 10 as you can get it without it sounding too squashed. Lastly, the crest factor. I don't want to go too technical, but the crest factor basically is the amount of punch in a record. A lot of early Dre records has got an amazing crest factor of 8. 8 is incredible. 6 is kind of, average. 6 is good. 4 is not, kind of crappy. So make sure you're getting it around 6. So we'll move on to the next one, which is the Mac Miller instrumental. Just change the loop bracket. So you can hear here the snare is more of a click, fact, it's a clap and a click layer, so a hand clap and a hand click layered together, which knowing Flying Lotus he probably recorded himself. In this record the bass is hitting around 60 Hz, and I think the kick is hitting just above it, maybe 70, it sounds very low. And again, Flying Lotus uses a lot of sidechaining in his records. You can hear all that kind of mechanical digital high-end noise, that's this kind of boost here. That's sitting between 8.4k and around 11k. I think the click's in here, so you got the click in at 2k. You can hear the click is a lot quieter than the mechanical noise. You got your main group of instrumentation sat here, around 500 Hz, and you've got another dip at 160 Hz. The RMS is around the same, and the crest factor is a little lower, 3.7. In fact, if we have a look at the crest factor for Until the Quiet Comes, yeah, as I thought, a lot lower. That's mainly because there aren't any drums in this record though, so. And if you're wondering why the RMS is so low, it's because this is a FLAC file. It's been converted to FLAC, so it's not at its full volume. It would be a lot quieter if it was, it would be a lot louder if it was taken straight off the CD. And you can see the correlation meters fluctuating probably the most out of the three. That's because of the amount of textures in there, the amount of sounds, and the amount of, the time-based effects, the reverbs and delays. But this track is amazing, it's full of wonderful textures, it really does sound great. I wanted to put this track in here more for you to get an idea of some of the Flying Lotus sounds rather than mixing characteristics. I feel like To the Dancers and the Mac Miller instrumental, the SDS track, they show off his mixing characteristics. This record kind of shows off his sound choice and his textures a lot more. But yeah, we'll go back to the Dancers. Get the analyzer back up. So yeah, on average, you want your bass in around 50 Hz, your kick sitting between 60 and 100, so maybe 80, and sidechain your kick very slightly to the bass. You want some nice sparkly high end around 10k. You want your snare hitting around 2k. This can change depending if it's a clap or a rim shot or a click even. And you want your main music sat between 200 and 1k. Going back to the drums for a minute, Flying Lotus' drums are always wonky. They're always offbeat. They're never, well, not that I know, they're never kind of quantized to a grid. He always makes sure that they're slightly in front or behind the normal rhythm of a drum beat, which is what gives them that offbeat kind of wonky sound. Going back to my Jay Dilla series, Jay Dilla's very well known for his kind of wonky or always late or early snares. Flying Lotus kind of makes completely wonky rhythms, but a lot of Flying Lotus' sound, as it was with Jay Dilla, is down to the sidechaining. Like, you just need to get loads of different sounds in there and just sidechain everything together. Even the vocals, always sidechain the vocals just a touch as well. That can sound real nice. But it's definitely something you need to experiment with. Just experiment with getting loads of different sounds from kind of wacky places, pitching sounds down, pitching sounds up, getting lots of pads, getting lots of layers in there, and then just doing a great mix over it all. That's kind of Flying Lotus' sound in a nutshell. So I hope that's how, guys. And again, in part 2, I'm going to be breaking down the track which I played at the start. You'll get a lot more of insight in part 2 into the more technical side of a Flying Lotus record. This kind of video is just to give an overview and a kind of taster as to what you can expect in part 2. So that's it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching it. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up below, and if you're enjoying this content, please subscribe too, because I've got a lot more of it planned. So this is me signing out, guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.